The USGA just made a decision that has the entire golf world speechless. 3 of the most beloved names in the sport, players fans have cheered for decades, will not be teeing it up at the US Open. And the PGA Tour? Completely powerless to stop it. What if I told you that Tiger Woods, Rickie Fowler, and Sergio Garcia, 3 legends that millions of fans worldwide show up to watch, are all missing from the 2025 US Open at Oakmont? No wildcard. No special exemption. No second chance. Just gone. Stay with me, because what happened behind the scenes is far more shocking than the headlines, and if you think you already know the full story, I promise you, you don't. Before we get into it, if you love golf and you want the real story behind the headlines, not just the highlight clips, hit subscribe right now. We break down the drama, the politics, and the moments that the mainstream media won't touch. Hit that bell icon too so you never miss a video. Alright, let's get into it. The 2025 US Open at Oakmont Country Club, Pennsylvania, is one of the most anticipated majors in years. Rory McIlroy finally completed the career Grand Slam earlier this season. Scottie Scheffler is the world number 1. The field is stacked. But 3 names that should have been there, 3 names fans were desperate to see, are nowhere to be found. Let's start with the most painful one. Tiger has won this championship 3 times, 2000, 2002, and that legendary 2008 battle on one leg at Torrey Pines. Every time Tiger shows up anywhere, the crowd triples. TV ratings explode. Golf stops being a sport and becomes a global event. But in March 2025, Tiger underwent surgery for a ruptured Achilles tendon, ruling him out for the entire season. This is his 4th missed US Open in 5 years. The USGA cannot give him a special exemption for injury alone under their current rulebook. If you're not fit to qualify, you're not in the field. And so the greatest to ever play the game watches from home, while 156 others compete for the trophy he once made look easy. Fans were devastated. Social media went into mourning. Because here's the thing about Tiger, even when he's not playing his best, his presence changes the entire atmosphere of a tournament. Without him, Oakmont will feel a little emptier. Now let's talk about a player who didn't miss because of injury. He missed because the system failed him at the worst possible moment. Rickie is one of the most popular players in American golf. The orange fits. The personality. The near misses at majors that make him one of the most emotionally compelling stories in the sport. He finished second at the 2014 US Open at Pinehurst. He was tied for the lead heading into the final round in 2023 at Los Angeles Country Club. Every time Rickie shows up at a major, fans are locked in. But to get into the 2025 US Open without an automatic exemption, Rickie had to go through final qualifying at Kinsale Golf and Fitness Club in Ohio, a brutal 36-hole grind on a single day known as the longest day in golf. He played well enough to force a playoff. 8 players competing for just 3 spots. He lost that playoff. 1 bad hole. 1 wrong read on a putt. And just like that, his US Open was over before it began. Now here's where it gets deeper. Rickie's world ranking has fallen dramatically. He's currently sitting outside the top 60 in the world, which means he doesn't get an automatic pass into majors the way he once did. The USGA's exemption system is built around rankings and wins, and Rickie's recent results simply haven't met the threshold. The PGA Tour has no power to hand him a spot. The USGA controls the field completely. And so one of the most fan-favorite players in the game is watching on television. To be fair, Rickie did qualify for the Open Championship later this summer through a sponsor's invitation at the Memorial Tournament, so his major season isn't completely over. But the US Open specifically? Gone. And then there's the name that shocked everyone the most. Let me give you the scale of what just happened. Sergio Garcia played in every single US Open from 1999 to 2024. 25 consecutive appearances. A quarter-century of showing up at America's most brutal major. Multiple top 10 finishes. A player who built his entire career legacy partly around his consistency at the highest level. In 2025, he had to qualify through the Dallas final qualifier. He needed 1 stroke to force a playoff. On his final hole, he 3-putted for bogey. Missed by 1 single putt. And just like that, a 25-year streak that most players can only dream of building, ended. Garcia is on LIV Golf now, which makes things even more complicated. LIV players don't earn official world golf ranking points in the same way PGA Tour players do, which means they can't rely on the ranking system to get automatic entry into majors. For 2025, the USGA added a new exemption category giving 1 spot to the top LIV player not otherwise exempt inside the top 3 of the LIV individual standings. But Garcia didn't qualify even through that route. He's not in the Open Championship field either. He played at the Masters and the PGA Championship this year, but for the first time since Bill Clinton was in the White House, Sergio Garcia will not play in the US Open. The golf world noticed. His Ryder Cup record is the greatest of all time, more points than any player in history. And yet the system that governs major championship entry left him on the outside looking in. Now let's talk about something most YouTube golf channels won't explain properly: why the USGA has this kind of power, and why the PGA Tour literally cannot do anything about it. The United States Golf Association is the governing body of golf in America. They own and operate the US Open completely. They set the exemption categories. They decide who's in and who's out. The PGA Tour doesn't fund the US Open, doesn't run it, and has no vote over the field. Even if every player on the PGA Tour signed a petition to give Tiger a special exemption, the USGA could simply say no. For 2025, the USGA had 25 exemption categories. Past US Open champions from the last 10 years get automatic entry. Top 60 in the world ranking. Major winners from the past 5 years. Top 5 in the FedEx Cup standings. Winners of qualifying tournaments. The USGA does have a special exemption category, but they used it sparingly, and injury alone doesn't automatically trigger it. Tiger didn't receive one. This is actually a massive ongoing debate in professional golf. With LIV Golf splitting the sport, with ranking points being distributed differently, with players like Garcia and Talor Gooch, who by many metrics is one of the best iron players in the world, falling through the cracks, more and more fans and analysts are asking whether the USGA's exemption system is actually fit for purpose in 2025. And here's a storyline that barely got coverage. Sam Burns, who was tied for the lead in the final round on Sunday, was denied free relief from what appeared to be casual water on the 15th hole. He appealed once. The ruling stood. He appealed again to a second official. Still denied. He made double bogey from the awkward lie and lost the lead. Fans online erupted. Burns was robbed. Was trending. Terrible call, was everywhere. Whether you agree with the ruling or not, it added another layer of controversy to a USGA that was already under fire. So what does all of this tell us about where golf is right now? 3 of the most beloved names in the sport are absent. 1 because of injury that the governing body won't create an exception for. 1 because a qualifying system built for a different era of golf failed a player whose world ranking doesn't reflect his actual popularity or ability. And 1 because a structural divide in the professional game, the LIV split, has made it nearly impossible for certain players to maintain the ranking requirements that major exemptions demand. The PGA Tour is caught in the middle. They can't control what the USGA does. They can't force LIV players back. They can't manufacture a system where every fan favorite gets a spot simply because fans want to see them. What they can do, and what many insiders are now openly calling for, is a complete restructuring of how major exemptions work. More spots for global rankings. A wider window for ranking eligibility. Perhaps even a legacy exemption for players with a certain number of major appearances or world ranking history. Because the reality is this: golf is a television product as much as it is a sport. When Tiger isn't playing, millions of casual fans don't tune in. When Rickie and Sergio aren't there, the storylines are thinner. Ratings drop. Casual engagement drops. And the USGA, which relies on the commercial success of the US Open to fund everything it does, including amateur golf across America, ultimately pays a price too. The 2025 US Open at Oakmont was still a spectacular championship. JJ Spawn is your champion, a moment of pure redemption for a player who never gave up. But for millions of fans around the world, there was something missing. 3 players who shaped modern golf. 3 legends who deserved to be on that first tee. The USGA made their decisions. The system ran its course. And the PGA Tour watched, powerless. If you made it to the end of this video, drop a comment below. Which of these 3 did you most want to see at Oakmont? Tiger, Rickie, or Sergio? Let me know. Like the video if you found this useful, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. So we just told you how the system works today. But here is the question every golf fan is asking right now: is this system about to change? And if it does, will it be too late for the legends we just talked about? Let's go deeper. The USGA has been running the US Open the same way for over a century. Rankings-based exemptions. Qualifying rounds. A rigid set of categories that decide who gets in and who stays home. For most of golf's history, that system worked fine. Because there was only one major professional tour. The PGA Tour. Everyone played the same events. Everyone earned the same ranking points. Everyone had a fair shot. Then in 2022, LIV Golf happened. And everything broke. Suddenly you had some of the world's best players, Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, Phil Mickelson, Sergio Garcia, Talor Gooch, playing on a tour that did not award official world golf ranking points. Which meant the USGA's exemption system, built entirely around those rankings, automatically started excluding some of the game's most popular names. Fans were furious. TV executives were worried. And even the USGA themselves could see the problem coming. In February 2025, the USGA did something nobody expected. They became the first major championship governing body in the world to create a direct exemption pathway for LIV golf players. Not the Masters. Not the Open. Not the PGA Championship. The USGA moved first. Here is exactly what they announced. For the 2025 US Open at Oakmont, one spot would be given to the highest-ranked LIV golf player inside the top 3 of the LIV individual standings as of May 19, provided they were not already exempt through other categories. On top of that, the top 10 players on the LIV points list got a local qualifying exemption, meaning they could skip the first stage of qualifying and go straight to the brutal 36-hole final qualifier. This was genuinely historic. For the first time ever, a major championship had formally acknowledged LIV golf as a legitimate competitive pathway. The LIV Golf CEO Scott O'Neill called it a huge step forward. Golf fans around the world called it long overdue. But here is the catch, and this is the part that barely got covered. In 2025, the 3 players at the top of the LIV standings by the May deadline were Jon Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau, and Brooks Koepka. All 3 were already exempt into the US Open through other categories. Which meant the new LIV exemption spot, the historic first-ever direct pathway, went to absolutely nobody. The category existed. But it helped 0 additional players get into the field. Sergio Garcia? Still outside the top 3 of LIV standings at the right time. Still didn't qualify. Still missed his first US Open in 26 years. The system changed, but not enough to save him. Now for 2026, the USGA expanded the pathway. Instead of 1 LIV exemption spot, there are now 2. The top non-exempt LIV player inside the top 3 of the final 2025 LIV standings gets a full exemption into Shinnecock Hills. And the top non-exempt LIV player inside the top 3 of the 2026 standings as of May 18 gets a second full exemption. Joaquin Niemann, the Chilean star, claimed the first of those 2 spots based on his 2025 LIV standings finish. The second spot was still up for grabs heading into the LIV Virginia event in May 2026, with Jon Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau sitting first and second in the 2026 standings, but already exempt, meaning that third spot was wide open for any LIV player to grab. This is genuine progress. 2 full exemptions for LIV players at a major championship. The Masters still hasn't done this. The PGA Championship gives vague, special invitations, with no clear criteria. The R&A's Open Championship has its own complicated pathway. The USGA is now the most progressive of the 4 major governing bodies when it comes to integrating LIV golf into the major championship ecosystem. But is it enough? Here is what the USGA's new system still does not solve, and this is the uncomfortable truth that nobody in golf's establishment wants to say out loud. World rankings. The entire exemption system beyond the LIV spot still runs on official world golf ranking points. And LIV golf players still do not earn those points the same way PGA Tour players do. Which means a player like Talor Gooch, who by almost every metric is one of the best ball strikers in professional golf, has a world ranking that does not reflect his actual ability. Which means players like Rickie Fowler, whose ranking dropped partly because of inconsistent results on a tour that is more competitive than it has ever been, fall outside the automatic exemption window. The OWGR system was designed for a unified tour. Golf is no longer unified. And until the ranking system itself is reformed, not just the exemption categories built on top of it, the fundamental problem remains. Some analysts are now calling for a legacy exemption, a category that gives automatic US Open entry to any player who has won a major championship in the past, or who has made a certain number of US Open appearances. Jack Nicklaus had an honorary exemption into the Masters for years simply because of who he was and what he had done for the sport. Why can't the US Open have something similar for players like Sergio Garcia, whose 26 consecutive appearances represent one of the greatest streaks of consistency in major championship history? Others are calling for a complete redesign of the OWGR formula, one that gives LIV events proper ranking weights so that players on that tour are not artificially punished in the exemption system. The PGA Tour itself has been pushing for a reunification deal with LIV Golf since 2023. A framework agreement was announced, then stalled, then partially revived. As of mid-2026, a full merger has still not happened. And every month that the sport remains divided, more fan favorites fall through the cracks of a system that was never built to handle this level of fragmentation.